Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion Podcast. Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion is an authentic reflection of our real life in a loving 24/7 DS marriage. If you crave the passion and intensity of a power exchange dynamic inside of a deeply loving and intimate relationship, you've found the right place. You can always find more from us in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
For the record, when we're recording this podcast, it is the middle of January. And this one probably won't come out for a few weeks. And by then, what we have to share here today will already be noticed and seen in a lot of ways, in the ways that we're showing up in our business, in Instagram and other places. But you've had some pretty big realizations in the last couple of weeks that have led to a need for you to pull back from the talking about your life part of our business.
I sure have.
So, before we get into a little bit of what's led up to that, what is that feeling like to you today?
Still very much the same. And yeah, the need to stop talking about how I got to where I am.
That's been one of the biggest drivers of this. That was the end result realization of some of what we're going to get into here today. But talking about how you got here has gotten to be something that just isn't working anymore.
Isn't working, yes, but it's so much bigger than that.
How so?
Well, week and a half ago or so, when I was in the hibernation of having my bleed time of my cycle. This time going into it, I've referenced this before, I think, but the feminine monthly cycle is like the 4 seasons. And so as I've come into more of who I am, I've noticed these same patterns, these same desires of pulling back come deeper in that luteal phase, and then, which is a fall, which is, for me, I've noticed that there's like falling away of things that don't serve me anymore. Lots of different things about life, who I thought I was, identities. And then I shift into this, the bleed time, and it's like a winter, it's a hibernation. And the last few months have been really, really strong for me in pulling back and being with myself. And the last couple of times, like in this camper, it's like spending some time in the bedroom, in just not even a lot of light, by myself, doing whatever I feel like I want to do, and really having to disconnect from the world and be extremely protective of my energy and who and what I'm engaging with. And this last time, I got hit pretty hard, not even 24 hours in. And we were sitting having lunch, and I was describing some things, and I felt the words coming out of me, and I didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth. I did not try to say this. But what came out of my mouth was, I am not here to help people. And it hit me. It hit me, and I was in tears. And it's still raw.
You didn't start that sentence when you said it with the intention of saying those words.
No, I didn't.
It was one of those things that it was like it was spoken through you, and I almost felt it like a deeper part of yourself talking to yourself, saying something that you hadn't heard from yourself yet, or you hadn't been able to see. And you saw it very clearly. Not only that you're not here to help people, but how much of your life up until that moment has really been geared at trying to help other people.
What I felt in those words was what you're getting at is the lie. Damn, this is hard. It's the lie that I believed my whole life. That I was here on this planet to help other people. And I made that agreement with myself back when I was a young girl. I don't know why, but that's what I decided. And probably is attached to how I was trying to get love, who I needed to be in order to be loved, to be accepted, and, being of service to other people. And was displayed to me in my life. And I can look back and I can see all the ways, the affirmations of me holding that belief, how my life played out that way. And some of those have been deeply confronting, because it's really opened the felt sense of what it means to love other people, what it means to serve other people, what it means to give of yourself. And when I realized that that lie was abandoning myself, I'm almost 43. This means my life has been built on a lie. Now, does it mean that I don't enjoy some of those things still? No. There's so many threads to this, right? But something broke in me that day. And I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to abandon anymore. And it quickly turned into just conversations, which, rewind a little bit, we kind of already were talking about some of this, like you've seen some of this, but haven't had many experiences where I arrive at a point and something breaks and it's like, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot show up in this way anymore. I'm here to honor me. I'm here to be me, and I am worthy of that. And now I get to step into truly kind of finding what that is, how that looks like for me, not for anyone else, not even for you, but it does involve you. I know that. I feel that.
And the reason that applies to your role in this business and this podcast and the teaching parts of our business is what?
Well, I've been here on calls, on groups, on this podcast, talking about myself. How did I get here? And, well, some of that's been fun. Some of it's been challenging. And I haven't always been in tune with the exhaustion part of what that was bringing to me. And, it was self-reflection. And I'm thankful that even in all of that, we have heard from so many people that they are thankful for that it has been helpful. And it's still great. I'm glad. And so there's no regret. There's no resentment. It's just a shift. And that's all I can really do is accept reality, accept the past for what it was, how I showed up, but now really learn what it's like to choose myself because I am worthy of that.
It brings to mind that statement that we can only be responsible to the depth of our awareness.
Right.
And until you had that moment of awareness, you were operating with what felt like the right thing to be doing. And we both already knew that to a certain extent, having you over involved with talking, teaching, analyzing, opening yourself to other people's challenges, like that wasn't great for you. But this awareness that you had really showed both you and me that even though you reflecting your experience and talking about how you got here has been very helpful to a lot of people. We have thousands of people that listened to every episode of this podcast, and we hear from a lot of them about how you reflecting your experience has shown them something that's been valuable to their lives. And still, no matter how valuable it is to anyone else, you have to put yourself first. And the thing that I respect about your process in this is there's no, like, you haven't second guessed yourself once. You've trusted this, even though it's going to mean a lot less of you on this podcast, a lot less of you in our groups, which for all of our listeners and viewers right now, it's going to mean a lot more of me. And the fact that it helps other people does not create any obligation on you. And obligation is something that neither one of us will tolerate in our lives. And I know that's both rewarding and challenging to see. And I've watched you battle with some of the challenges over the last week and a half. It's really felt like that came out of something that happened a little bit before that, which was a guided meditation that I was taking you through.
It did, but it's been the... Damn, I don't know what word to use. I said this before, that it seems like this kind of opened up in me in June, and I had a big experience in July 4th, actually, Independence Day. And it felt like I stepped into a new freedom, which was very fitting for that day. We're sitting at home and it was just like pouring rain all day. Isn't it ironic? Pouring rain as I'm sitting in the living room crying. And I just felt like I was in something, and then it was the moving, and it's been letting go and letting go and letting go of the identities of who I thought I was, of who I needed to be for everybody else. And I this was when we were in Gulf Shores, Alabama. This was another Sunday, and we were sitting by the pool and having a really good conversation, and something just really shifted for me in letting go of things attached to fitness and nutrition. And it felt like all of these things were just falling. And that day, I remember this, I don't think I'll ever forget this. We were on a walk and I literally stopped and I'm like, I am enough. And I was like, I'm enough. I'm enough for me. And so
It was
that
like a revelation for you.
it was. And you can say this shit all you want. You can say all the mantras you want. There is a drastic difference between knowing it in your mind, believing it in your mind, and having the felt experience from the body, where we actually live. And so that was what, 2 months ago, I think. And that created a big shift in me. And then I went into another time, and like so much happened in the last 2 months. You know, we already talked about the letting go of physical home. Like, I don't need to get back into that. But the feels that I am able to connect with and the experience that comes from my body has only been made possible by showing up for myself, arriving at the actually, I do matter. I'm enough, and I matter. And what you're referencing in that guided meditation was very powerful. I felt afterwards, I felt vulnerable. I felt exposed. I felt this sense of protection. Once again, this isn't the only time this has happened. This is over and over and over and over. But it was like, I remember saying to you, like, something is gone, and I feel like I lost protection. Not lost in a, like, I need it back, but vulnerable, I think, is really the only word that I can really use. And while it felt kind of scary, I know by this point that it actually reveals more of me. And I can't remember the date on that, like, time frame. It really doesn't matter, but it wasn't long before this experience of arriving at I'm not here to help people. It's definitely what helped make this possible to be seen and felt by myself.
A big part of the your own seeing how you were in self-abandonment, in showing up, helping as a helper, was seeing the ways that, especially in relation to this business, showing up, helping people, like we talked about already a little bit before, was you showing up, talking about the past.
Mm-hmm.
All of this work that you have done, everything that I've led you through, everything that you have taken yourself through inside of my protection and in my leadership, but that you've stepped forward yourself for and really claimed for yourself. At the same time as you are experiencing all of this letting go and the waves of grief and everything else that come with it, you've also been experiencing new levels of aliveness.
Yes, I have.
And that's another thing that has brought some tension between talking about the past and living in this newer, bigger, more alive experience that you are having on a day-to-day basis. So can you talk a little bit about how that tension between talking about it and living?
Yeah, so it kind of feels like if I'm in the moment and I'm talking about the past, I'm turned backwards. I'm focusing on whatever it is I'm talking about. How did I arrive here? How did I feel this? What was this for me? How do you do this? How do you do that? And sometimes I just wanted to pull out my hair. To be honest, I'm like, because I recognize, like, I can share my experience and my reflection, but nobody else lived my life. Nobody else made the belief systems that I did. Nobody else had the influences I did exactly the same. And so I would try to describe something, And there was like so much love and heart in it. And I still want everybody on this earth to experience themselves in their own worthiness and like they matter and feeling their own love. I want that for everybody. But I'm not sacrificing myself for anyone else to get it because I can't. Like, I can't change anyone else's life. So looking back and just speaking about it, just as like I'm looking over my shoulder. Well, if I'm looking over my shoulder, I can't also look forward at the same time. And I can't even be truly in my own life experience, is what I'm now feeling. And so it would be like I would be living my life, shifting forward, feeling excitement, feeling new turn ons, which has been fucking incredible. It's like, wow. And to watch the level of that just escalate, 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 escalate. And the amount of pleasure that I'm able to experience. And then it would be like, I'd go back to talking about it, and it didn't make me want to have sex. It didn't make me feel turned on. And it was easy to ignore for a long time because that piece of me that held I am here to help people, basically coming from I don't matter, was getting something out of it. You know, like there was that ego self getting its fuel to stay there, to stay in its own aliveness. And so I want to live my life. I want to live my life for me. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited to truly find out who I am and really live in my purpose of being here, which is not self-sacrifice.
The helper mentality, that part of you that was getting something out of sharing your experience, which again was very helpful and to other people, but also I know at times helpful to you too, because us having these conversations here was a form of self inquiry, and it was a place to dive a little bit deeper into your experience. But what it eventually got to over these last few months, since we've been doing this on the road especially, is we would finish recording one of these, or we would finish a call with a client, and you needed serious time to recover from that.
Yeah, some decompression.
And when you think about it now in retrospect, well, it makes complete sense. You're going through all of this surrender, all of this opening, all of this expansion, all of this, like, watching you bubble up and come to life. And then, the people who find us here, understandably so, are people who want to find their way towards what it is that we're living and what we're experiencing. So to meet those people where they're at, you were having to go back to the beginning, and you just don't live there anymore.
Right. And it became harder and harder to put myself back into that and to, come up with like, what's an example of this and what's an example of that? Like, I've shared this before. I don't remember things the same way. My brain is not remembering out of protection anymore. So I don't remember the same way. I can't even speak to things the same way. And then the other thing that, we've talked about in communion with other women is receptivity. As I've let go, this isn't just a abstract letting go. This is actually letting go of energy that I held in my body. What was that energy? It was walls around my heart. It was walls around all of me. It was protection. And a phrase that I had come to my mind a few times is like, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Well, sure. Like, I've arrived at a point where it's like, you can think whatever you want of me. I'm just going to live my life experience. And I can understand that what your opinion is, either in support of or not support of whatever I'm doing, is about you. But that's still a penetration to me. When I'm with clients and they're talking about their challenges, like I can be there, I can love them, I can be in the heart of like empathy and compassion. And I felt all of that real. It's still a penetration to me to receive someone else's experience. And while, again, I don't resent anything, I don't look back and think, why did I do that? I did it and I'm cool with it. I'm happy I did it. I'm happy we have this business. But I can't open myself up to receive in certain ways like I used to, because it just isn't supportive of me anymore. And I'm not here to support my ego. I'm here to let it dissolve. So there has to be a goodbye to certain aspects of the way I showed up.
I've used this analogy with you quite a few times over the last couple of years as you've looked at letting go of things, but then also not wanted to let go of them and wanted to figure out, how do I still hold on to this while also letting go? Like, I want the benefits of letting go, but I don't want to actually let go. Has been a theme for a lot of things for you. And we hear this from a lot of people. It's a question we get all the time that can be boiled down somewhat to, how do I have the life that you guys live without changing anything about my life?
Yeah. And I'm like, you have to be willing to change anything and everything in order to become who you are.
Yeah. And the analogy that I would use is, just because you can drink poison and have it not kill you doesn't mean that you need to keep drinking the poison.
Yep. And I remember some specifics around when you started first using that, and it was hard. It was like, oh fuck. Like, you can't argue with that statement.
And so when we realized that, to some extent, having you showing up here and having us do this podcast and do our courses in the ways that we've been doing them was you drinking poison.
Yeah, it was a very good analogy.
When we realized that, I'm not going to have you continue drinking poison. So, for the people listening to this wondering, like, is this podcast going away? Because we have a lot of people that love what we do. And I'll say, first of all, no, it's not going away. By the time this one comes out a few weeks from now, I'm going to need to have figured out exactly what it's going to look like. So I have a few weeks to sort out how I'm going to change the approach to this. I know the episode that comes out right after this one, I'm going to do a solo episode talking about how I handle situations like this, when you're like, everything needs to change and it needs to change now. How do I handle that? How do I receive that? How do I sit with that? What do I do with that? How do I know what is the right thing to do? So stay tuned next week for everyone listening and watching, because that will be the follow-up to this. Will be me here solo. And then going forward, I don't know yet what this podcast looks like, but I'm not letting it go away. One of the things that I know is that because of how deeply I see you and how much I'm going to continue to be leading you and guiding you, nothing's changing with our dynamic, nothing's changing with our relationship, except for the fact that you are just going to be able to flourish even more. And I will continue to share your life along with mine in the ways that in what I talk about, what I share, what I bring here, the conversations that I have. So people will still hear about you and your evolution and your growth, and we'll have you back on here from time to time too, but it's not going to be in the same respect. It's not going to be in the same kinds of conversations. It's going to be more, if anything, more of you talking about sharing your life as you're living it and whatever that happens to be evolving into.
Yeah. And, looking at what I felt was small roles that I played in this business, but still recognizing that it was about our relationship. Like I've had to really sit with my own clinging to any of the ways that I've shown up. The beautiful thing though was I could see it. It wasn't, I guess it wasn't really clinging. It was just seeing that I had to let things go. And part of letting things go, I have felt sadness. I have felt some grief. Like there is an emotional process of letting go. And we've sat in the hot tub here a couple times and just talked about what that is. And meanwhile, that I could also feel possibility on the other side. And we've been talking a lot about feeling this shift happening. Like I have felt it coming. And it doesn't mean I know what is coming. I'm feeling the experience of the shift. And like I said, the possibility, and it feels so much bigger and it feels very expansive in my system at the same time of letting go. And that's been a really fun and beautiful process for me to continue to experience like both ends of the spectrum in it. Because if I'm letting go of something, I'm making room for something real. I'm making room for truth. I'm making room for more love and joy and aliveness in my system. And what I have to be willing to do is stand up in myself and say, I'm going to dance with this uncertainty and let it excite me and let myself be fueled by it with surrendering to knowing the outcome. What is this going to look like? I don't fucking know. But I get to live in it and I get to dance with it. And it was just I don't remember how many days ago now, but I remember laying on the bed because I was like, all of this felt like it kind of came to a head. Caught me off guard a little bit because I didn't quite expect that to come out of my mouth. I didn't know that at all. Even at the beginning of the statement, I was like, holy fuck, that just happened. But I have felt this closure ready to happen. And for me, it was a couple months ago where I'm like, I am so ready to let go of my past. The ways that I held myself responsible for my involvement in other people's lives, like I've really had to sit with letting go of feeling like I fucked up my kids and anyone else's life that I was involved in. Like I held myself highly responsible for my kids' pain. Like I didn't like they're not their own soul, having their own experience, like their own things come to their lives, like, and I just was part of it, but I acted like there was no God in them, whatever. And so I have felt all of these doors needing to close, and this is one of them for me. And just expressing all of this, it felt necessary in order for me to step forward and just let it all go. And I'm ready for that. And I'm super excited for what's to come.
One of the things that I'm guessing some people are wondering when they hear this is, what do you do all day?
I've gotten
Because
that question a lot, even a long time ago.
because your involvement, even though it hasn't been extensive, we aren't just changing this in terms of how we are, like, having you on the podcast and how we are having you in our courses. We're also changing things behind the scenes and how we live our lives too, to line up with this. Meaning, I'm also not going to be bringing you the problems and challenges that other people bring me that I'm helping them with. So it changes our conversations, it changes our interactions, it changes a lot of things, because I do not want to feed you poison. So, for the sake of the people who are curious, this frees up a lot of time and energy for you, letting go of all of this. And it is, like, my promise to everyone listening is, this is a positive thing for Dawn and for me and for our relationship, because, well, it is. But what are you planning to do with that energy and with that time that's cleared up, and the fact that you won't be doing the back and forth into talking about it and then trying to get back into living it?
Well, simply put, I'm going to do whatever I want to in the moment. But my focus is going to be what brings me aliveness, what brings me eros, what brings us eros together. But it all starts inside of me. Like, as the feminine, when we live in polarity, I get to bring that aliveness to us. And, back to your statement about the poison, I can't keep pouring poison on my aliveness and expect myself to be able to always feel alive. And that's what I want. And, when I speak about aliveness and eros, it is sexual energy. And so I get to play with whatever that is for me in whatever ways feels good. The other thing that, in our relationship, you do a lot of things for us, and you have. But what has really shifted in a pure expression inside of me is the excitement around getting to do most of the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry. You basically have done all the laundry, partly because of the way we travel in this washing machine and the hookups that you have to change and blah, 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 blah. But you'll do whatever part I need you to do, and I get to do it. And the serving you and the expressing my love for you in that way feels so much bigger. And, even in that, though, if there's some time of the month where it just feels incredibly draining to me, we've already talked about, like, everything is still your responsibility, but you get to delegate to me. And I feel excited for that part, because now I get to pour into you even more versus feeling like I'm just needing to decompress and kind of be alone and sometimes feel a little numb after expending energy in ways that just now I realize weren't serving me.
For the guys who are listening to this, and I'll talk more about this on the next episode, but we have to decide, like, I have to decide, what do I want in a partner? What do I want in you as my submissive, as my wife, as my person? And if you've asked me to lead you, and then I know where I want to take you, sometimes the things that I need to do in order to have what I need out of this relationship might seem inconvenient.
And probably are sometimes.
They are. This whole thing is inconvenient to me. It is. I also have been cheerleading you and nothing but supporting you, because I know that what I need is you in your aliveness. I don't need you to do this podcast with me. I do need you to be alive and energetic and expressive and open to me. And that, I cannot substitute that. I can't let that go just because I want some help.
Right. And you have always stood there. This whole time since you stepped forward into saying, I want you to be my submissive, you have figured out and continuously helped our relationship and me evolve into more of that. Like, you're fucking incredible in what you've been for me and will continue to be for me. And what, like, who you are is the reason why I can be where I'm at inside of this relationship as your submissive. I feel the most free and liberated to be me and to be wholly yours at the same time.
The way that I describe that to people is I continue to push you like forward into your own life, or to turn you back within yourself and say, figure out who this is and then let that flourish. And then I look at my role as growing in whatever way is necessary to be big enough, strong enough, solid enough, grounded enough to hold the fullness of whatever you can be. And this is a great example of that, because the fullness of who you are was being held back by the ways that you were reverting into going back to the beginning, and sharing the stories of the things that happened now 3, 4, 5 years ago, in keeping yourself in that energy. So now the part of this that is the aliveness and the excitement part for us is we both feel you like you're on some kind of a launching pad about to go into some new atmosphere of eros and aliveness. And I also know that that means that I'm going to need to catch the fuck up. Because when you blast off, there's a lot there. And I want all of it, but I need to grow to hold all of it. And that's been the impetus for my growth as a man, and the most powerful thing in my life has been the necessity of growing to hold you as you've grown.
I really do feel this sense of being ready to fly. And what I love about my journey is I wasn't into like BDSM. I didn't read about it. I didn't know about it. But along the way is like so much of the concept of what BDSM gets at, like it just clicks inside of me. And I haven't sought this out. I haven't tried. But these little analogies and understanding what is it about being blindfolded for a woman or being in bondage for a woman. Like I can't speak to everybody's exact thing, but what makes sense in my system, when I speak about flying, the whole concept of a submissive being in a leash with like attached to my collar kind of comes to mind. Like I get to fly and you're just holding on to it so that if I'm going to fly over a fire, you're like, no, come over here, fly here. Or if I'm going to, I don't know.
I'll keep you out of the power lines and you just have a good time.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, didn't notice that. Whoops. And you get to just guide me. It's like, no, free right here. That's going to hurt you. you're free to be all of yourself right here. And you get, like, I've watched you grow, and I'm so excited for this year because, again, all this kind of shifted so dramatically and so quickly, and I just feel like you've got me here, and I'm like, yay, I'm free to play, I'm free to be me, and I don't even know what that is, but I get to just wake up every day, and being so much more connected to my body allows me to actually feel, what does it want, what does it need? Is it rest? Is it play? Is it workout? Is it this food, that food? Is it what kind of sexual fun? And I've said this so many times, my whole experience of life has changed, and I'm still here in this body. But internally, I'm so different.
What you're getting at with BDSM and kink is really that these different ways that we play with these things are fun, but they're also pointing at something deeper.
Exactly.
And the leash can be really sexy. Also, it is emblematic. I like the analogy of the string and the kite,
Yeah.
right? The leash, sure, when we're playing with it, I might be making you crawl to me. But if you think about it like a string on a kite, you crawling to me is you showing your devotion to me. And it is you experiencing yourself in your submission to me, in your service to me, and in ways that feel good and that are consensual and that everyone's having a good time with. But also, we've talked about the leash like an energetic leash too, where it is a part of my job to let you play and then to grab you when I need to and go, that isn't a good idea. Like, there's poison over there. Let's keep you out of the poison and come back in the playground. So these things with BDSM point at deeper truths, and I think that's why they're so exciting and why they're such turn-ons.
Exactly. Thank you for that explanation. You have a really good way of actually explaining what I'm getting at.
What I'm really excited about in this is, as you experience whatever kind of flourishing happens out of letting go of this, I'm going to continue to share with all of our listeners, with our Instagram followers, what it is that you're experiencing. And rather than you talking about how you did it, we're going to be able to show off what it is that you are experiencing, how it is that you're living, how you are serving me. You can probably expect more pictures of Dawn kneeling, just more fun in the way that we bring our content, and it'll probably be and become less serious.
Yeah, life doesn't need to be serious. And there is a certain element of when you recognize, oh my gosh, it's on this feel of like, I've been doing life wrong. And you get on this, I'm doing personal development. I'm becoming more of myself. It's like, yes, but continue to live. And we always had to remind ourselves of that. And now I'm like, I just freaking want to live. I just want to have fun. Like, that's what I'm here for. That's what I want.
And one of the things that has been fun in considering this, even though it has, like I said before, been inconvenient, one of the things that's been fun is playing around with the ideas of what that can look like. And it will be fun to see where some of those ideas go and what we bring to and share with everyone as they continue to witness you in a new expression.
Yeah, it'll be fun and exciting. And again, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I have some idea.
The last thing would love to have you touch on a little bit is you've really grown so much in your capacity to feel okay regardless of circumstances and regardless of uncertainty. And we're in a period right now. Well, I'm in a period right now where there's a lot of uncertainty.
We both are.
We both are in different ways, but what's it like for you now experiencing uncertainty, and how does the fear versus excitement balance feel to you?
Um, well, going through a lot of what I have and letting go of those deeper fears that I held, the deeper belief systems that I held, it opens up the body. Again, this isn't just a conceptual thing. This is real. Like, I couldn't have known how much tension my body held. I couldn't have known the terror, the rage that was anger that my body was holding. Like, I was a fairly healthy human being. I worked out, wasn't very flexible, but like I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I continuously just let go of more. And it honestly is letting go from the body. And what is there when, if you imagine those things that you've let go of is black, filling your insides, it becomes pure, it becomes white, it's spaciousness, it's love, it's joy, it's aliveness, and it's just there. So now when I feel a fear, I can feel that, oh, this feels nervous, this feels anxious, a little bit. And I was never a anxious person in my mind. Like, I didn't feel that, like, oh my God. But if I was to step on a stage, no doubt I'd be nervous. But on the other side, it's the same spectrum. You have fear and you have excitement. And this is why I've recognized that any fear that I've held is attached to excitement inside of my system. So if I can let go of the fear, guess what's going to be there? Excitement. So now it's like, if I feel only fear, I know that I can open myself to it. Let it permeate me, and it will show me the excitement. And I have like actual examples of this sexually, even. In the turn-ons that now are there that were not there. Like, you're speaking to Miss Very, Very Ultra Vanilla before. And my whole experience of my body and my sex has changed when I've let myself step into fear, as terrifying as it feels, as whatever the ego wants to draw up as the worst case scenario, because it will. Just let it. Be with it. Don't run away and don't stop it. Don't suppress it. Just let it be there and express it. And it has continuously shown me excitement.
I love that quote that uncertainty feels like fear to the ego, but uncertainty feels like excitement to the soul.
Yeah. And that's why, like, so a couple times in the last couple years, like, when women would ask, like, how do you hear? How do you feel? Like, what is your intuition? Well, it's so many different things, right? Like, the whole universe, God is speaking to you in so many different ways. But it was really beautiful that a couple years ago, I had this like image. We were sitting right there and it was over there. It was like right there. Couldn't see it, but it was there. And I had this like feel with seeing it that there was a doorway over there. And I was like, oh wow. And I remember it kind of explaining this to you. And I'm like, there's all this like darkness behind me. And I can see this like colorful and it feels like abundance and expansiveness and just so much over there. And then a while later, it surfaced again. And then I was in the door. And I'm like, wow, it was like so much. I don't need to describe it all, but it was just this felt experience. And then you had, I think it was a dream of your own experience that connected with what I'm describing. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is us coming, like, this is us together. And I'd kind of forgotten about those until recently. It surfaced. I'm like, huh, that whole door thing hasn't surfaced. And then it was when I was laying on the bed the other day, it was like, close the door. Close the door. I'm like, all right, I will. And so now I'm closing the doors on my past and fully letting it go for whatever it was. It doesn't need to be carried by me anymore. It doesn't need to be carried by my body, and I'm not going to keep talking about it. So I know there's a learning curve there for me because of how much I've talked about it. And I'm going to create new habits. And so there is some like integration in what does this look like? What do my days look like? I can't know. I can't know, but I can know that I'm committed to myself and my aliveness. What fills me up that can overpour into the world in ways that I don't know, but it's not for the world, it's for me.
Exactly.
Which is going to pour into you. And I'm really excited at what this also frees up for what I get to be to you. Meanwhile, being committed to myself. Like I can hold all of that in a new way that's not coming from abandoning who I am.
So this isn't a goodbye, because it's not like people are never going to see you on this podcast again or on any of our other stuff.
Right.
But it is an ending of sorts, of at least the way that we've gone about doing this. And I said this before we started recording, but when we sat down to record the last podcast episode before this one, I had no idea that the next time we'd be sitting down to record one would be you saying goodbye in a way to this.
Yeah. There's so much surrender that has just been present. But that surrender, again, like going back to the uncertainty, I can learn to dance with it and to live in it and to really throw myself at life under your guidance, like jumping off a cliff, free falling, and knowing that you've got me. Life has got me. And I'm here for a big life. And so I'm jumping.
I will speak for all of our listeners who I know value and have valued so much of what you've brought to this over the last 70 some episodes, 70 some hours of us sitting down and talking about it, that while I celebrate, and I know we all celebrate you diving headfirst into your freedom and look forward to seeing where it takes you. And I look forward to sharing it with them. That the fact that you have been so willing to be open and vulnerable and share your life and your experience in this way, it has changed a lot of people's lives forever. And I honor you for that. I respect you immensely. And that work will remain out there for a long time and touch a lot more people's lives without you having to do a thing.
It's been fun. Like, I've enjoyed doing this with you. Like, just sitting here talking, being vulnerable. Like, it's not nothing to me, even if it was what it was. It's just, I'm more of me now, and I choose to honor that. And I'm thankful to you for being my biggest cheerleader, because I wouldn't be here without you. Wouldn't be I wouldn't see who I am. I wouldn't even be experiencing the truth of who I am, because I had no fucking clue. So, this is still raw for me. This is still quite emotional. But much needed and so good for us and me.
So here's to 2025 and whatever comes of all of these choices and these changes. And, if you're listening to this, please don't unsubscribe, because there's going to be more good stuff to come. It's my intention and my belief is that what we are able to bring to all of you out there because of the changes that we're making is going to be more fun, and it's going to be bigger, and it's going to be reflective of what becomes possible when you follow a woman's body, when you follow her truth, when you follow her emotions. We fully intend to have a lot of fun and to share it. So, any last words before you say goodbye for now?
Thank you. Thank you for having me as a part of your journey. And, those of you who have worked with us, for trusting us and being real with us. Because we're here to be real with you too. And I encourage all of you to relentlessly choose yourself, relentlessly seek your own authenticity in this world where it doesn't really seem to be common, but it can be, because all we can do is change ourselves and be ourselves. So I encourage you to be it all the way.
Thank you.
My pleasure.